There we go. Now we're live. All right, we are
Back
live.
to not knowing if we're live or not. Excellent way to start the year.
Oh, well, I don't know about you, but it's been hard for me to kind of just get up to speed with being back to work to begin with. So par for the course. That
100%. Like this was so funny because I think so many people felt that slowing down of our
Mhm.
brain cell activity when it comes to work when we switched to like that the last week and then went into like hibernation for a week and now we're back and it feels like, oh my gosh, that's right, there's so much to do in our work world.
Right,
It's been a
right.
strange week.
It has been a strange week, and I'm sure it has been for our listeners as well. And happy 2024, guys.
2024. So I hope you all have had luck writing or typing 2024 on things because I
Right.
haven't had that luck yet.
I had to write a check, and I was proud of myself for actually writing
Oh, you
2024.
wrote a check.
I yes, I did. I had to write a check. Look, I still have a checkbook. Look, it's sitting here.
Wow.
I know.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and
No,
that's
that's
not
good. I mean, we have a checkbook too, because there are certain people like small, um, like I'm trying to think, it's like, even our trash collection has gone online now, but we do have a few small businesses that don't accept
yes,
online payments that we have to write checks for. So
yes.
I tease you, Lenny, because it's fun to do, but
It is yeah. Anyway, so let's so it was interesting. I think we're both of us were, that we posted a few things to share over the holiday, but not much. And then all of a
yeah.
sudden, yesterday and today, we were both like, oh, this.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
So, and it's interesting because we were so focused on kind of wrapping up the year in December, right? That it snuck up on me that like, oh, of course we will have some predictions for the year ahead, or of course there will be like, hey, what does 2024 have in store for us? So I love that it was Natalie Push, she's our senior content producer here, that she actually shared an article with us that's like, here's the title of the article, which we'll share. You thought 2023 was a big year for AI? Buckle up. And I just laughed when I saw the title because I'm like, here we go. We're going to
Here
have to
we go.
start off 2024 talking about AI, right?
We are, and that was a lot of the content. I think truly, let's reiterate, it was never our intention for this to be the week in AI. But it's the week in AI and market research.
Yeah.
But it's it
Yeah.
continues to be the big defining topic.
Yeah.
And that was a great article with the
Yeah, it was
predictions.
good. And one of the quotes from it, when we'll share the link, of course, but one of the quotes was 2024 will be the year that technology gets really good and starts changing the way we do absolutely everything. So, Lenny and I have been preaching quite a bit about like get on the bandwagon. But now I think one of the trends in that article and then another article that we're sharing the link to that I kind of went down the rabbit hole for coming out of Stanford, which is like mass adoption.
Yep.
Like mass adoption is what's going to happen in 2024. So, gone is the advice for get on board. And now it's like the train has left, like mass adoption is coming. And that's pretty interesting to think about.
It is, and I know I think we touch on this. The OpenAI launching their GPT store next week,
Yeah.
and that's just part of the process to drive this mass adoption, right? It's the development, the financial resources, the accessibility, and the use cases across the board.
Yeah.
I think some of the themes from that Stanford article were good. Do you want to touch on those?
Yeah. I mean, I think mass adoption is one of the ones they mentioned. White collar work shifts is what they were saying, but I think many of us have already felt that. But it's almost like enough experimentation now to start doing, right? So really moving into implementation of some of the workflows and process improvements. I know that like here at Greenbook, like we're onboarding a new platform for kind of our internal usage that is happening this week. And, it's like, yeah, we're changing the way we do things internally real time right now. So yeah. And then the other one I think that's really useful to talk about, which taps into what you were talking about that ChatGPT store, is more helpful agents. So, that interconnectivity between communication between generative AI and then actions happening, implementation, thanks to the interconnectivity of the different tools and platforms within it. I think that's going to be really interesting this year.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that obviously in the research world as well, right?
Yeah,
The everything we're talking about is kind of macro, but we think about it from just the conversations we have daily with colleagues and other companies, in the industry, particularly the supplier
yeah,
side. That this is all happening in real time,
yeah,
and we continue to see what that the impact, what that'll look like
yeah,
methodologically
yeah,
um, as we progress. I think we'll see all the topics we talked about last year.
yeah,
They will continue to be defining topics this year on how we use these tools and drive more value and hopefully better insights, because
yeah, yeah.
ultimately that's what we need to try and do.
Yeah, yeah. And at the same time, I know that, we're tracking, and I know some of the large associations, whether it's SMR or Insights Association, are tracking kind of the regulation happening around it. EU stuff coming out of EU right now, stuff coming out of the US government right now for regulation, responsible AI, like, all of those kind of actions and committees and things being put forth. We even saw this year, which I had to laugh at. I don't know if you saw that yet in our thread, but Google coming up with a robot constitution for
Yes,
responsible AI. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now we have actual, like, guidelines that our robots have to follow, which I think is kind of hilarious. And at the same time, all right, good. They're working on that sort of thing.
absolutely. Well, shout out to the classic Isaac Asimov. Anybody who's a sci-fi geek, Asimov. He wrote his three laws of robotics back in the 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
and I know that as we're going through this process, many people have referred to those like that. It's a pretty good foundation. No pun intended. He also wrote a book called series called Foundation. Anyway, uh, but for this idea, especially right, was it last week we saw the news of a robot had gone crazy, and somebody was hurt in the Tesla facility, and okay, we're gonna have to get used to that. There's gonna
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
some bumps in the road
Some
as we go
bumps,
down this
some
path.
bumps. I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard
Yeah,
about somebody getting hurt. At first I was like, "Wait, did a robot got hurt?" Like, and I'm like, anyways.
person. I think they just got in the way, and that was the robot didn't stop, and the person just got in the way, and they got hurt.
Well,
So
have you ever been in a grocery store? Like, we have a Stop and Shop brand grocery store here, and there's the little guy that goes up and down the aisle shopping, and, like, there have been times when I'm like, "Oops, excuse me, sorry," and, like, I do move to get out of its way, but then sometimes it's a pretty close call, so I can see how that could happen.
it can. So self-driving cars, it's a whole other.
I
Not,
know,
but,
I know.
but
No, not
here we
necessarily.
are.
Yeah, not necessarily our industry, but yes, pay attention because the future has happened, right? When we were going through 2023, the future happened in many of these labs across the country. So, which brings us to sort of some themes on the not so rosy side, right? That we should all look at. And, full disclosure, one of them that these articles talked about was the deep fake proliferation, and they literally said we should all be a little anxious, as if we're not, about the upcoming election year. So, like, we have to be really careful because deep fakes are real. So, and it's going to be a hard year for all of us to, I think, discern that as individuals, discern what's going on. So we have to be careful. Kind
Yeah.
of consumer public service announcement is be really careful.
Yeah, so I don't even include it here in the links, but I saw a piece that I know we had shared on the rollout of a platform that clones voices, right?
Yeah.
And the that's readily accessible.
Yep.
It's an AI solution, and the business model there is for celebrities to kind of effectively clone their voice, clone their face, and license access to that.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. It's a way to scale, individuals.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's nothing stopping anybody from using it to do any type of shady stuff we could imagine. So,
There's that
yeah,
really cool, which this is a great time to share it actually. There's that really cool video campaign that I think I'd shared weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, if we have an opportunity to talk about deep stakes, which
mhm,
is Steakums experiment. Carly, maybe you can go back in and find that one through our threads. But basically, they did a mock-up of what would happen if unethical brands altered the results of a focus group discussion and changed the consumers' actual statements into what they wanted to skew the results for. And it was really interesting and really, on some level, kind of entertaining because you're like, holy cow, this is so messed up. So, let's hope that everybody in our orbit never does that with focus group data.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think all of that, so it's a good segue,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That we've predicted,
yeah,
based, and I'm sorry, I have my an itch in my eye. The that we would see a growth and resurgence of qualitative research
yeah,
overall, because of the need to ensure that we are talking to real humans and
yeah,
engaging with real humans. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. And based on some of the news already out this week,
yeah,
um, I think that was a pretty good bet, because that in a world we're seeing is not believing, maybe from a digital standpoint. Face to face, in person interactions become more important across
yeah.
the board, and certainly for research.
Yeah, and certainly for qualitative researchers, like, you know, uh, my big wish, and most of my clients had the big wish that more people attended and those back rooms were full, so that people could hear firsthand, and witness what was happening in that room. Because there is a difference between seeing it, hearing it firsthand, and then even reading it in reports, right? When you're there, when you're actively engaged in those research projects, it all comes to life in a very different way. So my wish for that kind of niche of our industry is that more client side speaker, or more client side kind of insights professionals get the travel budgets back in place to go and hear from consumers live, in person, real time, because I think that will be more and more important for them.
I agree. I agree. Well, I think, we'll see. I know there's been a couple deals. Well, L&E just announced a deal where they acquired a product testing facility in Orlando,
Yeah,
and the that piece of the business, anything sensory,
yeah,
it still cannot be digitized yet.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
and I think that continues to be a huge piece of the business, and a real opportunity for what you're talking about, to build more engagement in the research process in things like that, let alone traditional focus groups.
right,
So,
exactly, exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Which, could probably be a good segue into some of the things we learned about our industry as a whole in the last week or so. We hit 2024 with some great kind of announcements out there, but let's talk
Mhm.
about the Buzzback launch, because that, to me, what I love about that, and you can probably talk about it a little more articulately, but I love that it brought together a few different, companies that we all know about to collaborate, which I think you predicted in the last year about how the insights um, businesses in our industry might have to start to find ways to collaborate, and here we have a manifestation of that. So why don't you tell them a little bit about that studio?
Sure. Well, in full disclosure, BuzzBack is a Gen 2 client. So I had a little bit of a front row seat to the thinking about
Yeah,
this product. And the gist is they combines a service bureau, if you will, a qualitative service bureau, with a collection of a variety of tools that they've tested. Our friends at Recollective and Discuss, and uh, gosh, who else? Uh,
user interviews, recollect.
User interviews. Thank you. Thank you. Um, and wrapped around with some technology that BuzzBack has built to make the coordination of multiple kind of best in class type of qualitative solutions within their overall framework. The markets they serve, uh, and their expertise to facilitate that. And the goal is to try and decrease friction,
Yeah,
and increase efficiency of engagement
yeah,
across multiple platforms,
yeah,
and to create some real scalability in a process that traditionally has had scale problems. Um, so great initiative. I think we'll see more companies doing similar things, uh, and I think AI will help with that to facilitate some of the processes. And that's great. I mean, they've always been, shout out to Carol and her team. They've always been forward looking, and and thinking ahead and experimenting, doing new stuff, and they're continuing on that path. And that's just one example. This was a news for everybody saying, "Why you're not talking about company X?" This literally BuzzBack announced this yesterday, so we're
Yeah,
sharing this as a as a press
yeah,
release, as an example of what I think we'll see more and more companies doing
yeah.
as the year progresses.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. And in other news, Lenny and I, as long as we're in the know, then it's fair game for us to talk about, just so, to be perfectly clear. But we of course also heard about a rebrand from one of the companies that we've talked about quite a bit. They host an expert channel with us. Echo MR is now no longer Echo MR. They are now 10K Humans.
Mhm.
I have not digested all the ins and outs, but it's a big rebrand. And what I think is fascinating about it, and Lenny and you and I were starting to talk about this at the beginning, is that is another example of a company that's continually evolving, continually innovating and experimenting. Right? We
Mhm.
talked a lot about the bot gate last fall, but it's pretty neat that they just are just always always pushing forward in, hey, let's try this, hey, let's experiment with this, let's change this. They have a lot of courage. Carrie at the helm have a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, and are not afraid to try new things. So more power to them. What else do you know about the rebrand and how
Absolutely.
Carrie's doing things?
Not much else, but I think the emphasis, especially, Echo were the ones who brought forward Botgate, as you just said, but kind of remind everybody. So so that focus on humans,
Yeah,
I think is very telling and very kind of on brand for them,
yeah,
and appropriate for the challenges that we as an industry are trying to solve.
yeah,
And they were a company that started as a recruiting company.
yeah,
And they've evolved and they've built technology and they've built solutions, et cetera, and focusing on that connection between enable the connection between humans and researchers. And that's so I think it's a uh, great move for them to do that, and that's going to continue to be a theme that we'll see play out across everybody in the entire industry. It's foundational to success in the industry.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, hats off to Carrie and her team.
For sure. And, they definitely have had quite a focus, kind of on a personal mission, I think, of Carrie's, but also just organizationally on, the participant quality, integrity, respect for the people in the industry. So really leading the charge there. And I think the new name is indicative of how important the individuals are that participate in research, and that, of course, on the client side, people that hire them are also treated as human beings as well. So super human centric move there. So hats off.
Yep, hats off. And my apologies if you guys hear the dog. We are live and without a net, and
There are squirrels in the world, right?
there,
Or
yes, yes. Apologies. Uh, Going the other side, but still very much on the theme. There was a solution called Pluralytics that was launched, not necessarily in the research space, more in the marketing space, but to create targeted, basically synthetic sample, right? For all intents and purposes, if you're not asking survey questions, but it's utilizing data to create personas and of targeted populations, and uh, combined with some proprietary benchmarks, and using that as a way to test your content, particularly your written content, as it goes out, to see how it will work with different targets, different audiences,
Mhm.
their demographics and psychographic profiles. We're going to see a lot more of that. Uh, and it's this kind of merging between marketing and insights based upon data, and primarily based upon the data that we kind of create with profiles through all of our interactions with customers, and creating new ways to optimize those engagements.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We'll it just so where I was going with that was so what does it look like when you have companies like 10,000 Humans and Buzzback, et cetera, now starting to incorporate tools like this that are coming from outside of the research space, but have applications, and what's that synergistic relationship look like when they're all kind of feeding each other to create better solutions.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the predictions from Stanford and others, that we'll see that type of cross pollination really take effect this year across the board.
Yeah, yeah. In in like creative problem solving and ideation facilitation and all that, there's a tool that is basically taking these excursions into other worlds to help or to kind of provide stimuli for brainstorming to push out your creative thinking. And every time I see something like that, I'm like, I love external sources of innovation within a different industry. Like that is one of my favorite things in the world of innovation, is what can we use outside of our space and apply it in a different context to shake things up and change things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can we talk about sort of meta and the glasses being used on the patient experience? Because I actually really think it's fascinating that kind of as an adjacent, like, that they are one of the things they talked about in this sort of meta glasses world. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about kind of an augmented reality, glasses that you can wear, but they're talking about using it to improve the patient experience. So this is like meta getting in on the patient experience game. So, fascinating that they're going to be taking in data through their glasses to try to, to glean insights. So that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, ethnography, right? So yeah, that's, I mean, we'll still, now that's one of those use cases where where the devices make sense, in a healthcare setting, because you're going to do this thing, right, to put these on and do that. It's a controlled set. I'm still not sure about the widespread adoption of wearables across the board.
Yeah.
But in kind of a controlled situation, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, we'll be talking about wearables. That's one of the and kind of personal data in our upcoming IAX Health event, which is shameless plug right now because it's happening in February. IAX Health will probably bring you to a nice search for the website. But I know that one of our sessions is about going to touch upon like wearables and our physical health data, and it's being called medicine 3.0. Like, this is what's happening, by the way. Like our health data that we can collect through various wearables is going to be fully charged, heading in with new products. And anyway, it's going to be a really interesting time to check out healthcare, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, we've been talking about, the Internet of Things for years, and I think that's so in so many things we've had these technologies, right, to as wearables and biometrics and all of that good stuff. We've had the data, but it was disconnected. And to go back, why do we talk about generative AI so much? Because it unlocks so much opportunity to take down barriers and silos of integrating these solutions and the technology and the data primarily, and create new value out of it. It was hard. It was, just really, really hard a year or 2 years ago. And it's just become infinitely easier. So we'll see more innovation spurring off of that to create more value.
Yeah. It's really interesting when you think about this kind of data. I think I mentioned before the holidays that I really would like my phone to overhear me talking about how much I want an Aura ring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my watch hasn't started giving me the retargeted ads yet. So I'm waiting. Actually, I'm waiting for Tim to get the retargeted ads, but that's a sidebar. Anyway, but my daughter-in-law is staying here who has one. And when I ask her how she slept, which is what you do when you have a house, when somebody's sleeping at your house, like, how'd you sleep? You ask that question. And she's like, well, my sleep score, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's just so funny because it brings to mind, what do we do with all this data? Is she going to have a better day when her Aura ring has said she had a better night's sleep last night? Because in the morning she gets here's how you slept last night kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have a readiness score. Here's how ready you are for your day. And, laughing about, like, does that readiness score mean I'm going to be more motivated to get out there because I have a readiness score? Anyway, I digress, but I find that data really interesting. And what are we going to do with it all as individuals when we have access to so much data from wearables? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, so there was a term a few years ago called the quantified self when all of this first started to happen. We don't hear that much anymore. I think that the term kind of fell out of fashion, but that's exactly what we are talking about. The ability to measure all of these different components of our lives, excuse me, and And then, yeah, what the hell do we do with it?
What the hell do we do with that?
It certainly has personal value.
Yeah,
And I expect that it has real economic value as well,
yeah.
especially in the era of training sets. So do we want to touch on, I know we didn't include it here, but I think we should do a shout out real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
The New York Times suing
Yep.
the Microsoft, I think particularly for the uh, saying you're not paying us for access for your to our content for AI training sets.
Right.
Um, and and Carly, I think we did put that link in there if you just want to throw that out, even though it's unplanned. And additionally, today, as part of the launch of ChatGPT's GPT store next week, now they are aggressively promoting paying publishers for access to their content for training sets. So I bring that up as this idea that one, we're there's this big macro thing happening about who owns the content and who gets access to it, who gets paid for it, and it
Yeah.
looks like the tech companies are coming along and realizing, yeah, we probably just can't take all this without paying for it. So there is movement to do that.
Yeah, yeah,
The same thing will happen to humans,
yeah,
to individual humans, to have
yeah,
access to this type of data
yeah,
to help drive the training sets.
yeah, yeah,
So and we talk about things like universal basic income. I mean, Andrew Yang had proposed that idea back in in 2020, and I think those concepts are going to come back around now,
yeah,
um, driven by this interconnectedness of individual level data plus kind of the macro stuff that already exists online, and creating a whole different type of economy that
yeah,
really is the data-driven economy. So it'll
yeah,
be fun to see as that
yeah.
develops. Lots of stuff to work out, but it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think circling back, before we wrap to the very beginning of how we started it off, 2024 mass adoption. You think about some of this stuff's been out there a long time. Some of this stuff's been in practice for years now. However, we've reached a tipping point where it's not just early adopters, and it's not just, kind of those people at the lead of adoption of new technologies. It is now going to be a way of life by the end of 2024. So super fun to be a part of that and watching it happen, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's still the dystopian hellscape
Yeah.
idea, right? So, but you know,
We didn't
I,
even talk about the AI super intelligence. That's a theme we
we
just kind of stepped right over.
right, right. Q.
Oh yeah, this minor little detail about super intelligence. We won't talk
Yeah, yeah.
about that.
Fun times. Here's my bottom line prediction, and let's wrap with this. 2020. If we thought 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 were interesting years, I think 2024 is going to trump them all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nope, I do not disagree with you. So here's what we promise. We promise to always go to the meta level, talk about kind of macro dynamics for our industry, but also bring it back down to earth. Remember, you can email us your press releases and your news, theexchange@greenbook.org. Lenny and I will both be taking a look at that, and then we'll kind of make sure that we keep bringing you a little bit of both, a little bit of what's big for you to know that stimulates your thinking, and then a little bit about what's going on in our industry this week. And thank you, Carly, always on the job. I really
She
appreciate
is. She's awesome.
it. So
And
cool.
and I want to add a new ending because I realize I think we shared that we're getting lots of viewership on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. New ending.
so like and subscribe.
Oh,
Uh, that's what everybody else says. Like and subscribe.
like and subscribe. Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's a great idea. Good tip. Good tip.
yeah. And with that, we'll talk to you guys next Friday.
We wish you well. And now, and Lenny, for the camera, we should have our YouTube faces on. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, we're having fun, friends. Hope you had